Hello, everyone. Welcome to Asia Society at the Movies. I'm so pleased today to be able to be in conversation with Justin Chon. Justin is the director of movies like Gook, Miss Purple, and his latest oeuvre is Blue Bayou, which is getting a lot of attention. I personally just happened to see it on the big screen. I think it was the first time I've been at a movie theater in Los Angeles with a big crowd, and definitely the spirits were very, very high, and in large part because the movie was so satisfying and so moving. So Justin, welcome.
Hey, Janet, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the genesis of this movie. Why did you decide to pick this particular very searing and timely subject matter for your, what I've heard you say is the third movie of this trilogy, but maybe you can talk a little bit about that too.
Yeah, so I started writing this after Gook, and the script was frankly ready, a few years ago, and as movies go, it took a long time to get the financing ready to go. So in between, I made Miss Purple because I was waiting for quite a while. The genesis of this is, I am friends with quite a few adoptees, you know, um, because adoption is a major, pillar in our community. There's a lot of Asian American adoptees. I'm friends with quite a few of them, and found out that this issue was taking place where people who were adopted this country as children were being deported as adults, which made no sense to me because they were adopted by U.S. citizens, and the government acknowledged these adoptions and legally allowed these children to be brought overseas. So I just thought it was incredibly unjust, and I felt like it was very important that this issue get a spotlight. So that's sort of the impetus to starting on this journey. In terms of the trilogy of it all, that was just a kind of a sneaky way for me to get the movie going because the script was ready, and the company that I was working with, I just, it's not like they didn't want to make it. It was just, sometimes things take longer because there's a lot on their plates. And I, in the press, while I was doing Miss Purple, I mentioned in an article that this was actually part of Miss Purple was part of a trilogy, and the third part of the trilogy was Blue Bayou, and it was going to start shooting that June. So I got a very interesting phone call after that 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 interview released, and I was just like, are we going to make this or not? I want to make this now. But to be honest, all my films are a trilogy. Yeah.
Very good marketing tactic. But what do you think changed and let people suddenly have so much interest in helping you get Blue Bayou made after struggling for so many years?
It's not that it's not that it wasn't going to get made. It was just fast tracking it. It was with Macro, and for us in the industry, Macro is a wonderful company. And it was a company that I really wanted to make this film with Charles King. A lot of almost all of my first opportunities in this industry were given to me by African Americans, and I felt like a partnership with them was completely right for this. There's a lot of factors into making a film, so we partnered with E1, and Nick Meyer and Zeph Foreman over there are just wonderful mentors, and they came in to help finance the film, and we were up and running. But yeah, making films just take a second.
Well, you mentioned your partnership or allyship with the African American community, because that certainly came out loudly and strongly in Gook. Mm-hmm. And I feel that you've done a really good job in bridging different communities In Blue Bayou, you play a Southerner with a very convincing accent. You're all tatted up. Is this something intentional? And this movie and Gook in many ways have a lot of obviously social issues, whereas Miss Purple was more internal about family. How do you weigh the two factors? Not that they're not related, but it seems like you have been able to really swim in different pools when it comes to the kinds of movies you want to make.
Yeah. There's mainly two factors I look at when I am deciding whether or not to embark on a journey for a film, and mainly being, does it bring empathy to our community, the Asian American community? Does it bring understanding, compassion to us? And secondly, does it show how we can coexist in this country? So it's the reason why my movies are very inclusive and doesn't just have just one ethnicity. You know, it shows how we are part of a whole, and other minorities are represented on screen. You know, Miss Purple was, you know, had a huge sort of Chicano storyline and a Mexican storyline. Gook was African American. This was, you know, it was in Louisiana, so you had Cajun and Black, and a number of minorities, but I didn't feel necessary to call them out. It just is part of the fabric of the world. But ultimately, yeah, I'd like to see films that are just, it's not spoken about, it just is, you know. And another thing is, you know, it's about normalizing the way we want to see the world without having to bring so much attention to it.
That's just a word that I hear a lot about and think a lot about when it comes to our community. Is what we really want is normalization. You know, no longer are we just the exotic martial artist or the super rich comedian or the whatever. And I think your films really exemplify that. We're people, and we're found in very different situations, challenging and whatnot. And so I really applaud you for that. I can't help but talk about one of the stars of your movie, that girl, your stepdaughter. Tell me about how you found her. You were extraordinary. Of course, Alicia Vikander is amazing, but this is a newcomer and a surprise. Tell me about her. She really has quite a special quality.
Yeah. You know, Sydney Kowalski is her name, and I wanted a girl who felt real and authentic and not a performer. You know, it was really important that she felt that way, so it would lend to the authenticity and the realism of the film. You know, this film has sort of a docu-style rawness to it. So you know, I was searching for an actual girl from the South. You know, I looked in Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas. I found her in Atlanta. And 5 seconds into a tape I saw, I knew she was definitely the one. I went up to, she came down and we did a little reading and an improv, and we just hung out a little bit. And then I decided that she was going to be the one, but I did make sure I convinced the studios. So I went up to Atlanta with my DP, and we hung out with her and her family for a couple days, and we played video games and went to the mall and just hung out. And we filmed a lot of it, and I cut together like a little sort of highlight reel of us interacting. So I could show the other producers, and we hired her, and she came down a few weeks early, and we rehearsed quite intensively. But she's wonderful. She's magic on the screen, and she's a really good listener.
That comes through.
Yeah.
That comes through. There's many scenes where she isn't speaking. She's absorbing, she's watching, but there's so much depth in her absorption and reaction. And I think it's something that is probably hard to teach,
Mhm.
to tell a child, to listen well. So congrats on finding her. So back to the subject matter of your film, what should be done these days if you're able to speak about it? You've done so much research about these individual cases, and what really needs to happen? Is there anything going on in Washington that leads us to believe that this issue is being taken seriously?
Yeah, so there is the Child Citizenship Act of 2000. So it grants automatic citizenship to adoptees adopted after the year 2000. It's not retroactive. And there is a new bill that they're trying to get through. I think it's called the Citizenship Act of 2021. I believe that's what it's called. And it's a bill that's trying to get through. Um, but, I mean, I'm not terribly political. I couldn't tell you the process to even how a president, gets into office in terms of all the steps it takes. My job is to tell stories and to bring humanity to certain people like Antonio and the adoptees going through the process of deportation, in hopes that it brings attention, and what I do know about politics is that, the more attention, legislation gets, the more likely, it'll be dealt with. There's so many sort of things being passed and people trying to get through that you kind of need to make a bit of a stink, and I know that they're trying to pass this bill right now. So it just needs to be on top of everyone's mind. If a lot of people start to know that this is an issue, it becomes more important. So hopefully this film, gets a bit of traction and the right people see it and they use it as sort of a way to open up the conversation and get to the right legislators so that they have an avenue to discuss it. Yeah, and uh, so I hope, like with this film, that during this whole sort of release process, we've been talking about taking it to DC and screening it there and getting the right people in the room and you know, uh, going that way with the plan of attack. It was one of the biggest reasons I went with Focus for this, because they do have a track record of doing this. When they made the film Boy Erased, about gay conversion camps, they were able to get on the floor and even 2 years later, Peter Kujawski told me that they're still talking about the film and it's helping. So I hope that this film can do that for the adoptee community.
That would be incredible. I was just going to say, are there plans to take it to Washington? Because it's one thing to talk about an issue, and it's another to experience it on a visceral level.
Yes.
By watching a movie and seeing these characters and getting emotionally involved.
Yes.
And I can't imagine anybody seeing this film and not wanting there to be change for something so absurd that it's quite unbelievable. So yeah, good luck with that. I'm so sorry, I'm jumping around because I forgot to ask about Alicia. I meant to talk about Sydney and then Alicia. And she is an actress that many of us highly, highly admire. How did she become involved in your project?
Alicia Vikander is incredible. She's just magic and has no bounds in terms of her talent. She's I think on probably everybody's top 5 list in terms of people who they want to work with, and I always thought it'd be very interesting to have non-Americans play particular roles. Not every role, most of these roles are actual. Some are real people, like Merck. I found him at a vitamin store. They're real people from that area, and then you have Parker and Kathy, which are the 2 lead female characters, and I thought it'd be interesting if we cast non-Americans, because I think there's this idea, there's something interesting there to examine when a foreigner plays an American, they are making intentional choices about what aspects of an American they want to highlight and play. So, I had seen Alicia's first movie, a Swedish movie called Pure, quite some time ago, and it was a long time ago, and I owe it. That movie always stuck with me, and I always felt like she had so much passion and fire and fervor, and and she just had so much humanity, and ultimately I wrote her a letter, and I told her about how I felt, and you know, upon reading that I had seen Pure, she immediately wanted to talk to me. So we zoomed, and I said, let me ask you a question. How often do you get offered roles for blue collar sort of salt of the earth Americans, or just anybody who's salt of the earth? And she said never. And I said, uh, exactly. That's why I think we should do this together, because I feel like you would just bring so much life to this woman and this family. And you get offered these corset dramas all the time, and these period pieces, but this is about real people and that are now, and so she felt that it was something that she wanted to do and was excited to do. So that's how it all happened, and she came aboard, and it was nothing but a pleasure to work with.
Was she committed before Macro got involved, or was it after we were able to?
Macro's always been involved from the very beginning.
I
They
see.
commissioned the script.
I see.
So me and Macro have been on this journey for a few years, but
Mhm.
Alicia was maybe a few months before we started shooting. She came on.
Mm. Well, I think there's something to be said for that, for a non-American to bring fresh eyes onto the subject matter. So many of the best films about America, I think, have been made by non-Americans.
Mm.
And the other advantage I think you actors who are also directors have is that you know how to talk to actors. And that's such an essential thing, and what really moves someone to take on a role. So the way that you introduce the project to her, and I think sounds like something that an actor would know how to do. And I've always been very interested. It seems to me that there really are so many actors. I just heard Francis Coppola speak with Matt Dillon recently at the Telluride Film Festival, and they talked a lot about that, how actors are able to bring some, they're used to the rhythm on the set, and they know the mindset of other actors, which is obviously key ingredient. Writers often sit in the rooms, not to say writers haven't made great directors too, but you are like a quadruple threat at this point. Do you plan to continue being a writer, actor, producer, director in most things that you want to do? I mean, the thrill of having control, but also the stress of having all that control. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I love each of those disciplines. They're its own job. Each one of them, it's its own job, and but I think for a movie like this, to make sure that it stays pure and the purpose of the film isn't diluted, wearing all those hats, I think, help keep the integrity of it at the utmost highest level. But as for the future, acting. I love acting, but I'll act when I get invited, and it's the right sort of thing. I think in the last few years, I've slowed down quite a bit, but I did that movie with Wayne, Coming Home Again, and that's because it's Wayne. It's kind of like an interesting sort of pairing. Like it's the old with the new, it's probably my best acting experience I've had on set, because it almost felt like we're just two kids making something, and we're just constantly making each other laugh. And then I think the only other thing I really auditioned for in the last few years was First Cow, Kelly Reichardt's First Cow.
Mhm.
I'm glad she didn't hire me because I saw the film, and Orion is absolutely incredible, and there's no way I could have done what he did. And you can tell like what she wanted to do was very clear. Um, but if I get invited, and I think that the piece, is something beautiful. Of course, I'd love to continue to act. Writing, directing, and producing, I will continue to do because I think, again, trying to bring empathy to our community is what my purpose is. And I think I'm really well served in this space to make a lot of change and to challenge the status quo, to kind of just bring a little punk rock to filmmaking.
I remember speaking with you after you did the film with Wayne, and you talked about what a pleasurable experience it was, in part because it was so relaxing.
Yeah,
Didn't have to mind everything, right? You
yeah,
had
yeah, yeah.
your specific role. But what is it like when that was such a meaty role? You're in just about every scene and you're supposed to be behind the camera. So how do you physically manage to be in so many places at once?
Mm. It's preparation. I prepared extensively, and anything that is possible I could take care of beforehand, I've taken care of. It's my team that I've worked with on my other films, so they have my back, and there's a lot of communication that happens beforehand before anyone's even getting paid. Like talking about even score. Like I was talking about score a year before we started shooting. And the color palette and all that stuff. And then but when I step on set, my first and foremost job is as a director. I need the actors to know that I am there for them. I need them to feel confident and comfortable, that I'm making sure that they are serviced. I don't want them to feel like I'm coming first as an actor and it's about me. It's about them, and then I come last. um in a weird way, it takes off the pressure of me trying to perform because I know my lines. I've worked on the accent, like much longer than I would have if I had just gotten hired. And I intimately know the script because I wrote it, so I've been sitting
Mhm.
on it for a few years. And then I just come and let things go, and I come to play, and then I'm there for the actors. And because of that, I'm not so laser focused on what I'm doing so much. I'm there and I'm being present, and I'm being. I think that's what acting is anyways. If I'm there for my acting partner and I'm being present and listening to them and reacting, it's alive. So it definitely is an acquired skill, but it's fun. It's fun to dance.
Yeah, I can see why you were able to relax as an actor, but then you've got so many other things going on. And is the DP not coming to you and saying, but what about this? And what about this shot, or the production designer or whatever? I'm just curious.
Yeah,
Did you have to wear different hats? So you're kind of jumping in and out, maybe just like playing different roles.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's all part of it. It's what I signed up for, so it's not. I don't get frazzled by it. One thing is though, I stayed in the accent the entire time so I can have a consistency of at least the way I'm speaking. So I'm directing and I'm telling people what to do with this southern accent. So it's kind of funny, but after after a few days, everybody gets used to it. But it is what it is, and there's no way around it. And it's just learning how to manage it, and when things need to get done, they need to get done. And I guess when I'm acting in something, I just want things to get done quicker. So if there's an issue, or if there's something that needs to be taken care of, I want to take care of it now.
Mhm.
I don't want things to pile up. Every time something comes up, it needs to be taken care of that moment.
Mhm, mhm. Are you able to talk about other things you have planned for down the road, just so we can
Yeah,
look forward to them?
absolutely. So I finished shooting a television show. It's adapted from the book Pachinko. I did half of the season. It's 8 episodes. I did 4, and it should be out next year, early next year. And then I just
I believe
wrapped
that's on Amazon, right? That was Amazon.
Apple.
Oh,
So
Apple, right.
it's for Apple.
Uh-huh.
And then I just finished another film. Right before I came to promote this film, I wrapped the day before. It's a film called Jamujaya, and it's about an Indonesian father and son. And the son is a rapper just about to blow up, and his dad's been his manager his whole life. And he fires his dad and hires a white manager and a label. And essentially, the film is a breakup story between father and son.
Mm.
The son is played by Rich Brian, and this is the other thing is I believe that in line with bringing empathy to our community, we need to service our community as a whole, not just our own ethnicity. So I've done 3 sort of Korean American stories. Blue Bayou was partially a Vietnamese story, but I think I need to use my platform to highlight other stories. I feel like the Southeast Asian community is being underserved and haven't really been had a chance to have their stories exposed in U.S. cinema. So I think it's important that I tell other people's stories too. I also think that if we respectfully tell other people's stories as well, we'll become much stronger as a community, because there'll be a lot more understanding, rather than just being so focused in on just our own sort of stories. But that's what's coming next, and beyond that, I have no idea.
There has been a sea change, I think, about how the community has come together. Have you
Yes.
noticed it? I mean, and you've been a big part of that. And I do feel these days that we are in a better place. We have more strength in numbers. I'm often asked, oh, can we cast a Korean American for a Chinese American or this or that? And I think that I say, as long as it's very convincing, it's not convincing to have a white person play an Asian person,
Yeah.
but that I like that we've been able to put some differences aside and be able to say, we really have much more of a shared experience than we do differences. And it's fantastic how you have been able to highlight different communities. That Vietnamese woman that you brought into Blue Bayou, that was a very touching storyline. And that seems perhaps intentional that you wanted to show that. And it was great to hear Vietnamese spoken, and it seemed very, very authentic. And I think the rest of the world really needs to see that this kind of organic coexistence of these different communities. Right.
Oh yeah, I think that we're relegated to the allowance of one per film. It can either be just a Chinese story or just a Korean story. Rarely do we get to see ourselves interact on screen, and learn from one another and coexist. And why is that? We should see ourselves, being in the same spaces, and also differentiating who we are in a beautiful way. So yeah, it was definitely one of my intentions with Blue Bayou, was to see these adjacent Asian cultures relating with one another.
Right. And it doesn't have to take away, we
No.
can continue to be as authentic as possible and be able to incorporate other cultural stories, and they don't diminish the ones that you want to tell. So I believe we've just about run out of time, but it's been so lovely to speak with you. Thank you for what you've done for the world of filmmakers, film lovers, and our community in particular. It's really a pleasure. I wish you the best of luck with this film as you take it out into the world. Tell everybody when exactly it opens and what the plans are, how many theaters perhaps?
It's in theaters now. It opened the 17th, and it's in every major city. It's wide. So it's in a theater near you. So please, check it out, share it with your friends, and also talk about the issue. These adoptees are being deported, And the more it's conversed about and talked about, I think there can be a groundswell and sort of a momentum for something like this to change.